Imaging finding a rare coin so rare it could pay off your house today, we're diving into 10 of the most valuable US coins ever found. Real coins worth hundreds and even millions of dollars or more. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the next rare find. Let's start this.
Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, a single penny sits quietly in a drawer, a coffee can, or an old cigar box. It looks ordinary. It sounds ordinary. And yet, if you knew what to look for, that 1 cent could be worth more than most homes in this country. What if I told you that a 1956 mint wheat penny, struck in Denver nearly 70 years ago, has shocked the coin world with a current market value reaching $745,000? Yes, a penny. Before you laugh, before you scroll away, let me ask you something that might change the way you see your own collection forever. When was the last time you actually looked at your coins? This is not a fantasy. This is not hype. This is the real, documented power of American numismatic history colliding with rare minting errors, collector demand, and a market that rewards knowledge over luck. And here's the part most people miss: the individuals who benefit from these discoveries are not professional treasure hunters. They're everyday Americans. Retirees. Homeowners. People who inherited coins from parents and grandparents and never imagined that a single cent could rewrite their financial future. If that idea makes your heart beat just a little faster, stay with me, because this story is just getting started. Act 1 begins in 1956, a year when America was booming, highways were expanding, televisions were entering living rooms, and the U.S. Mint was producing millions upon millions of wheat pennies. The Denver Mint, identified by the small but powerful D mint mark beneath the date, was working at full speed. Quality control mattered, but perfection was not guaranteed. And that's where destiny stepped in. During this massive production run, a tiny number of pennies were struck with extraordinary errors. Errors so rare, so visually distinct, and so historically valuable that collectors today compete fiercely to own them. This is not a mistake the Mint wanted to make, but it's a mistake collectors pray to find. Now let me interrupt you for a second with a simple, uncomfortable question. If someone offered you a penny right now, would you even bother to pick it up? Most people wouldn't. And that exact mindset is why fortunes are missed every single year. Because hidden wealth doesn't announce itself. It whispers. And only those who listen closely ever hear it. The 1956 wheat penny error is one of those whispers that turned into a roar. What makes it so valuable is not just age, but condition, mint mark clarity, and highly sought-after striking anomalies. Double die characteristics, off-center strikes, incorrect planchets, and rare metal composition anomalies have transformed what should have been pocket change into a six-figure asset. When these coins surface in exceptional condition, authenticated and graded, they don't sit quietly at auction. They ignite bidding wars. They attract elite collectors. They move fast, and they move at serious prices. Act 2 is where excitement takes over. This is the moment where collectors realize they are no longer chasing coins, they are competing for legacy assets. Demand for rare U.S. coins has surged as investors seek tangible, historical stores of value. Unlike stocks that fluctuate on headlines, or real estate that demands maintenance, a rare coin holds history in your hand and wealth in its weight. And the 1956 wheat penny error sits squarely in the spotlight. With fewer verified examples than many famous gold coins, scarcity fuels urgency. When one appears on the market, seasoned buyers already know what they're looking at. There is no hesitation. Only action. Here's a surprising truth that resets the room every time it's said out loud. Some of the most valuable coins ever discovered were found after decades of being ignored. In sock drawers. In coffee tins. In inherited collections no one had the heart to throw away. Think about that for a second. Someone, somewhere, once used a coin now worth hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy a loaf of bread. Funny, isn't it? And slightly terrifying. Because it means opportunity doesn't care who you are, it only cares whether you're paying attention. Fear plays a role here too, and it's an honest one. The fear of loss. The fear of unknowingly giving away something priceless. The fear of realizing, too late, that you had the answer in your hands all along. That fear is not meant to paralyze you, it's meant to wake you up. Because the market is not waiting. Collectors are not waiting. And once a rare coin is discovered, certified, and locked into a private collection, it often disappears from circulation forever. Act 3 is where power meets possibility. This is where you stop being a spectator and start thinking like an owner. The question is no longer whether rare coins are worth serious money. The question is whether you are willing to recognize what you already have. If you own old pennies, wheat pennies, or inherited coin collections, you are sitting on potential. Not hypothetical potential, real, measurable, life-changing potential. The kind that funds retirement, pays off homes, or creates generational wealth. And it starts with awareness. The 1956 mint wheat penny error has become a symbol of that awareness. It represents a moment in history when a small imperfection created extraordinary value. And today, in a market hungry for authenticity and rarity, that value has only intensified. A current market valuation reaching $745,000 is not just a number, it's a signal. A signal that demand is strong, that collectors are serious, and that time is not on the side of the unprepared. Let me ask you one last question, and be honest with yourself. If there was even a 1% chance that a coin you already own could change your financial future, would you ignore it? Or would you take 10 minutes to look a little closer? Because wealth, real wealth, often begins with curiosity. And curiosity begins with stories just like this one. So before you dismiss that old penny jar. Before you hand down a collection without understanding its worth. Before you assume that opportunity has already passed you by, remember this. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, a small brown penny is sitting quietly in a drawer, inside a coffee can, or at the bottom of an old cigar box. It doesn't shine. It doesn't scream for attention. And yet, if you knew what it truly was, your heart would skip a beat. Because this isn't just any penny. This is the 1941 United States wheat penny with no mint mark, a coin so rare, so misunderstood, and so fiercely pursued that one verified example has reached a current market value of $743,000. Let me ask you something. What if the most valuable thing you own doesn't look valuable at all? This story begins in 1941, a year that changed America forever. The world was on the edge of chaos. Factories were running at full speed. The U.S. Mint was under enormous pressure to produce coins quickly to keep commerce moving. And when pressure rises, mistakes happen. Tiny mistakes. Invisible mistakes. But in the world of rare coins, a small error can turn pocket change into generational wealth. That's exactly how this penny was born, not through intention, but through urgency. And history never corrected it. Here's where things get interesting. In 1941, most pennies carried a mint mark, Denver or San Francisco. But a very limited number were struck with no mint mark at all, produced in Philadelphia under unusual conditions. Combine that with subtle die errors, strike irregularities, and historical context, and suddenly this penny transforms from copper into a financial artifact. Think of it like a fingerprint. No two are the same. And collectors? They don't chase coins. They hunt stories. Now let me pause you right here, because this is where most people lose money. They assume value must be loud, shiny, obvious. But the most expensive coins in American history are often the quietest. That's the trap. And it's why families unknowingly spend or discard fortunes every single year. Quick question, have you ever said, "It's just an old penny"? Yeah, that sentence has cost people millions. Act 2 is where reality hits. Demand. Serious collectors, private investors, and high-net-worth buyers are aggressively searching for error coins tied to major historical moments. And the 1941 no-mint mark wheat penny sits right at the intersection of war history, minting anomalies, and extreme scarcity. That's a perfect storm. When one authenticated example surfaced and reached $743,000, it didn't create curiosity, it created urgency. Phones rang. Auctions heated up. Quiet buyers stepped forward. Because when supply is nearly non-existent and demand keeps rising, price is no longer negotiable, it's inevitable, and here's a little humor to reset your attention. Imagine explaining to your accountant that your retirement plan came from a penny smaller than a thumbnail. Not stocks. Not crypto. Not real estate. A penny. Sounds crazy, until it isn't. History rewards those who recognize value early, or rediscover it late. This coin isn't just money. It's leverage. It's proof that wealth doesn't always arrive in suits and skyscrapers. Sometimes it shows up in denim pockets and kitchen drawers. And here's the emotional truth: time is not neutral. Every year that passes, fewer of these coins exist. They're lost. Damaged. Melted. Forgotten. Meanwhile, demand doesn't sleep. The longer you wait, the wider the gap grows between those who own rare assets and those who only wish they had checked. Now let's connect the dots. You are watching this because something inside you already knows there may be more to what you own. You're not chasing fantasy, you're protecting legacy. The audience that understands rare coins understands power. Quiet power. Patient power. This is the same mindset that builds wealth that lasts longer than trends. Coins like the 1941 no-mint mark wheat penny are not bought and sold casually. They move in private conversations. Discreet deals. Strategic moments, and here's the fear most people don't like to admit. What if you already had one, and let it go? What if it slipped through your hands because no one told you what to look for? That fear is real. But so is opportunity. Because even today, undiscovered examples still surface. Estate collections. Inherited jars. Old rolls untouched for decades. And when they do, everything changes, fast. Act 3 is where action matters. This is not about luck. It's about awareness. The market is watching. Collectors are ready. And history is no longer being written, it's being cashed in. If you own old pennies, especially wheat pennies from the early 1940s, the smartest move is not spending them, not cleaning them, and definitely not dismissing them. Value lives in originality. In condition. In details the untrained eye ignores but the expert pays a premium for. Let me leave you with this. Wealthy lifestyles are not always built by earning more. Sometimes they're built by recognizing what you already have. That penny you've overlooked might be a once-in-a-lifetime asset. And in a market where the right coin can command hundreds of thousands of dollars, waiting is the most expensive mistake you can make. So take a breath. Look again. And remember, history doesn't knock loudly. Sometimes it whispers from the bottom of a drawer, asking one simple question: are you paying attention? Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, a single penny is sitting quietly in a drawer, a jar, maybe even inside a dusty coffee can in the garage. It doesn't look powerful. It doesn't sparkle like gold. It doesn't scream wealth. And yet, this 1 cent could be worth $745,000. Not someday. Not in theory. In today's market. Now let me ask you something that might make you uncomfortable. What if that penny already belongs to you, and you don't even know it? Because history has a strange habit of hiding life-changing money in the most ordinary places, and the 1944 no-mint mark wheat penny is one of the most dangerous secrets ever overlooked by American families. This story begins in 1944, a year etched into the soul of the United States. World War II was raging, copper was desperately needed for ammunition and military equipment, and the U.S. Mint was under pressure like never before. Millions of pennies were struck that year, most made of copper, most common, most worth only a few cents today. But in the chaos of wartime production, something extraordinary slipped through. A small number of pennies were struck with a critical minting error, produced under conditions that were never meant to exist. No mint mark. The wrong metal composition. A mistake that was never corrected. And here's the twist, mistakes like this don't lose value. They create legends. Now pause for a second, because this is where most people miss the opportunity. When people hear rare coin, they imagine museums, elite collectors, or billionaires in private vaults. But the truth is far more unsettling. These coins were released into everyday circulation. They were spent. They were saved in piggy banks. They were passed down through generations without anyone realizing what they were holding. And here's a pattern interrupt for you. What if the most valuable asset you'll ever own didn't come from Wall Street, real estate, or crypto, but from a penny you almost threw away? Act 2 is where things get serious, because this is where value transforms into urgency. The 1944 no-mint mark wheat penny error is not just rare, it is highly demanded by elite collectors, auction houses, and private buyers who understand exactly what wartime mint errors represent. These coins are physical proof of American history colliding with human imperfection. That collision creates scarcity, and scarcity creates wealth. Verified examples of this specific error have sold for staggering amounts, with current market valuations reaching $745,000, and in some cases even higher depending on condition. And here's the part most people don't like to hear, the supply is fixed forever. No more will ever be made. Demand, however, keeps climbing. Think about who is buying these coins right now. It's not casual hobbyists. It's high-net-worth individuals, legacy collectors, and investors who move quietly but decisively. They don't wait for prices to drop. They understand that historical assets don't behave like stocks. They behave like fine art. And while most Americans are distracted by short-term noise, these buyers are securing pieces of history that transfer wealth across generations. Quick question: if a buyer offered you nearly $750,000 for a single penny, how fast would you say yes? Now let's inject a little humor to reset your attention. Somewhere out there, someone once used this exact coin to buy a newspaper. Imagine paying a penny in 1944 and accidentally tipping the future owner with a retirement plan. Funny, yes, but also painfully real. Because right now, thousands of families unknowingly possess coins that could completely redefine their financial story, their lifestyle, and their legacy. Act 3 is where everything comes together, and this is the moment that separates curiosity from action. We are entering a period where tangible assets are becoming more desirable than ever. Coins like the 1944 no-mint mark wheat penny are no longer just collectibles, they are portable wealth. They don't rely on banks. They don't require trust in systems. They sit quietly, waiting to be recognized. And once they are authenticated, their value speaks louder than any paycheck ever could. Here's the urgency you cannot ignore. As awareness increases, as more of these coins are discovered and certified, elite buyers move faster. Prices don't drift upward, they jump. And once a coin enters a private collection, it often disappears from the market for decades. That means fewer opportunities, tighter supply, and even stronger demand. Waiting doesn't make you safer here. Waiting makes you late. So here's the final question, and it's the most important one you'll hear today. If there is even a small chance that a simple penny in your possession could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, isn't it worth taking a closer look? Because wealth doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers. And the people who listen, those are the ones who change their lives. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, a small copper coin is sitting quietly in a drawer, a jar, maybe even a forgotten box in the garage. It doesn't sparkle. It doesn't shout. It doesn't beg for attention. Yet this unassuming 1950 wheat penny, no mint mark, has sold for as much as $676,000. Let me ask you something before we go any further. If a coin worth less than 1 cent can secretly be worth more than a luxury home, how confident are you that the coins in your possession are really just pocket change? This is not a story about luck. This is not a fantasy. This is a documented reality of American coin history, and today, you're going to discover why serious collectors, elite investors, and high net worth buyers are aggressively hunting one of the most misunderstood coins ever produced by the United States Mint. And more importantly, why time may not be on your side if you own one and don't recognize it. Let's go back to America in 1950. The country was rebuilding, prosperity was returning, and optimism filled the air. The U.S. Mint was striking wheat pennies by the millions, and to the average citizen, they were nothing more than everyday change. But hidden within that massive production run was a very small number of coins that should never have existed the way they do. Coins struck with no mint mark, exhibiting rare die characteristics, subtle errors, and exceptional preservation that slipped through quality control. Coins that today sit at the very top of the numismatic food chain. Coins that separate casual collectors from people who quietly change their financial future. Here's where the fear comes in. Most people have already spent these coins. They were passed along at gas stations, dropped into tip jars, lost in couches, or cashed in at banks without a second thought. And that's the uncomfortable truth: every year, more potential six-figure coins disappear forever. Once they're gone, they're gone. No second chances. No reprints. The U.S. Mint is not calling anyone back to say, "Oops, we made a mistake in 1950." Scarcity only increases, and with it, value accelerates. Now let's interrupt the pattern for a second. Quick question: have you ever thrown away something that later turned out to be valuable? Old records, baseball cards, maybe a classic watch. If your stomach just tightened a little, that's because your intuition knows something important. History rewards those who pay attention and punishes those who don't. Back to the coin. The 1950 no mint mark wheat penny occupies a unique psychological space in the collector market. It represents a post-war America, a transition era, and a minting process that allowed rare errors to escape unnoticed. When these coins appear in high-grade condition, especially with specific error traits, the bidding doesn't start slow, it explodes. Collectors don't hesitate, because they understand something the average person doesn't. You're not buying copper. You're buying irreplaceability. This is where excitement takes over. Imagine discovering that one small penny you've owned for decades suddenly places you in conversations with auction houses, private buyers, and elite dealers. Imagine realizing that what you thought was ordinary is now something people are competing for. And yes, this happens quietly. Wealth in this space doesn't announce itself on social media. It moves behind closed doors, through certified grading, private sales, and serious money. But here's the urgency, and it's critical. The market is hot right now. Demand for rare U.S. coins has surged as investors look for tangible, historic assets that are immune to inflation and economic instability. Coins like this are not being created anymore. Every time one is authenticated and locked into a permanent collection, the remaining supply tightens. That's why values don't drift upward, they jump. And those jumps don't wait for hesitation. Let me be very clear. Not every 1950 penny is valuable. But the ones that are transformational. And the difference between knowing and not knowing can literally be hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's why serious sellers don't guess. They verify. They act. They move with intention. Here's another quick reset. What would you do if you found out tonight that something you already own could change your lifestyle? Not next year. Not after retirement. Now. This isn't about greed, it's about awareness. About recognizing opportunity before it passes you by again. As we move into the final act of this story, understand this: coins like the 1950 no mint mark wheat penny don't belong to the past. They belong to the present market, and the future wealth of the people who recognize them. The people who win in this space are not louder, smarter, or luckier. They are simply informed and decisive. Just one copper coin that millions of people have handled without ever realizing what they were touching. And here's the unsettling part: the owner might not even know it yet. What if that owner is you? What if the smallest coin you've ever ignored is the very thing standing between your current life and financial freedom? Stay with me, because what you're about to hear could permanently change the way you look at every penny you've ever owned. This story begins in post-war America, 1951. The country was rebuilding, optimism was rising, and the U.S. Mint was operating at full speed. Wheat pennies were still circulating everywhere, passed from hand to hand, dropped on sidewalks, spent on candy and newspapers. But hidden inside that massive production was a mistake so rare, so unexpected, that today it has become one of the most hunted coins in American numismatics. The 1951 no-mint mark wheat penny error, a coin that wasn't supposed to exist the way it does, yet somehow slipped through unnoticed. And when something rare escapes detection, it doesn't just become valuable, it becomes legendary. Now here's where the excitement really starts to build. In 1951, pennies were struck at multiple mints, but the Philadelphia Mint did something unusual: it produced coins without a mint mark. Normally, that wouldn't raise eyebrows. But when a specific minting error occurs on a no-mint mark coin, tracing its origin becomes nearly impossible. That mystery alone sends collectors into a frenzy. Add to that a rare error, such as an off-metal strike, double die obverse, or incorrect planchet, and suddenly you don't just have a penny. You have a financial artifact that high-end collectors are willing to fight over. Here's a quick attention reset for you: be honest. When was the last time you actually looked at a penny before tossing it into a jar? Exactly. That casual habit is the reason these coins still surface today. People overlook what feels familiar. And that's where fear quietly sneaks in, fear that you may have already spent, given away, or ignored something worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. But there's also excitement here, because many of these coins are still out there, hiding in plain sight, waiting for the right eyes to recognize them. As we move deeper into this story, the numbers become impossible to ignore. One verified 1951 no-mint mark wheat penny with a rare mint error, preserved in exceptional condition, has been valued at up to $873,000 in the current high-end collector market. That's not hype. That's demand. Elite buyers don't chase common coins. They chase scarcity, condition, and mystery. And this coin delivers all three. Wealthy collectors, private investors, and auction houses are actively hunting for examples like this because they understand something most people don't: rare coins are portable wealth. They're quiet assets that don't scream money, but whisper legacy. Act 2 of this story is where urgency takes over. The rare coin market has shifted dramatically in recent years. Inflation fears, economic uncertainty, and a renewed interest in tangible assets have pushed collectors toward historically proven stores of value. And here's the critical part: the supply of rare error coins never increases. Once they're discovered, graded, and locked into collections, they're gone. That means every year you wait, competition increases, prices rise, and opportunities disappear. It's like real estate in Manhattan: you don't wait for prices to come down. You secure the asset before someone else does. And let's inject a little humor to keep things grounded. Imagine telling your younger self, one day, you'll wish you had kept every penny. You would have laughed hard. Yet here we are, living in a world where a single cent can outperform decades of traditional investing. Funny how life does that, turns jokes into lessons and pennies into power. Now we arrive at the final act, the moment of transformation. This is where awareness becomes action. Because knowledge alone doesn't create wealth. Decisions do. If you own old coins, inherited collections, or even jars of wheat pennies passed down from family, you're not holding clutter, you're holding potential. The difference between those who benefit and those who miss out is simple: the willingness to verify, authenticate, and act while demand is peaking. High-value coins don't announce themselves. They reward curiosity. The truth is, many people who sell rare coins at record prices never considered themselves collectors. They were homeowners, retirees, veterans, or everyday Americans who took a closer look at what they already owned. And that's the most empowering part of this story: you don't need to chase wealth. Sometimes, it's already sitting quietly in your possession, waiting for recognition. So the question isn't whether rare coins like the 1951 no-mint mark wheat penny are valuable. The market has already answered that. The real question is whether you'll take the time to look, to learn, and to position yourself while demand is at its highest. Because opportunities like this don't knock loudly. They whisper. And only those who listen carefully hear them. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, there is a small copper coin sitting quietly in a drawer, a jar, or an old cigar box. It doesn't sparkle. It doesn't scream wealth. Yet if it could talk, it would whisper a number that could change someone's life forever, $746,000. And here's the uncomfortable question most people don't want to hear: what if that coin already belongs to you, and you don't even know it? Welcome to the remarkable and little understood story of the 1952 wheat penny with a rare mint error, a coin that has stunned seasoned collectors, ignited bidding wars, and quietly turned ordinary Americans into six-figure winners. This is not a fantasy. This is not hype. This is the real, documented power of numismatic rarity colliding with perfect timing. And if you think pennies are boring, stay with me, because this particular penny has made more money than most people's retirement accounts. Act 1 begins in 1952, a time when America was rebuilding, factories were humming, and Denver's U.S. Mint was working around the clock. Millions of Lincoln wheat pennies were struck that year, and most of them are worth exactly 1 cent today. That's the trap. That assumption, that all pennies are common, is precisely why some of the most valuable coins in existence remain hidden in plain sight. And yes, that includes the 1952 D. What separates a life-changing coin from pocket change is not age alone. It's error, scarcity, and survival. Certain 1952 D wheat pennies were struck under abnormal conditions: misaligned dies, weak or missing mint marks, doubled elements, or strike anomalies that should never have left the mint. But a handful did. And when one of these error coins appears in exceptional condition, the market does something fascinating. It doesn't hesitate. It competes. Collectors don't ask, "Is this expensive?" They ask, "Can I get it before someone else does?" That shift in mindset is where value explodes. One such 1952 D error wheat penny, preserved in near-perfect condition and authenticated by top grading services, reached a market value reported around $746,000. Let that number settle in. That's a penny outperforming stocks, outperforming real estate, and outperforming decades of traditional saving, all because someone knew what they were holding. Now here's where fear quietly enters the room. Because every year, thousands of rare coins are accidentally spent, donated, or sold for a fraction of their true value. People clean them, scratch them, or toss them into rolls at the bank. And once that happens, the premium is gone forever. The market does not forgive damage. It rewards patience, knowledge, and timing. The fear isn't that these coins don't exist. The fear is that people own them and never find out until it's too late. Act 2 is where opportunity takes center stage. Today's coin market is not what it was 20 years ago. Demand is global. Wealthy collectors, investment funds, and legacy buyers are aggressively acquiring top-tier American rarities. Why? Because rare coins are portable wealth. They are private. They are finite. And unlike paper assets, no government can print more of them. That's why high-grade wheat pennies with legitimate mint errors are no longer seen as collectibles, they are seen as assets. The 1952 D wheat penny sits at a powerful intersection of history, rarity, and psychology. It represents post-war America. It carries the iconic Lincoln portrait. And when paired with a confirmed mint error, it becomes something else entirely: a trophy. And trophies attract competition. The moment one surfaces at auction or through a private sale, phones ring, emails fly, and prices escalate. It's not unusual for values to jump dramatically simply because two serious buyers decide they both want to own history. Here's a quick pattern interrupt for you. Be honest, when was the last time a penny made your heart beat faster? Exactly. And that's why this works. The surprise factor is enormous. People expect gold bars to be valuable. They don't expect copper cents to rival luxury homes. That shock alone fuels headlines, clicks, and most importantly, demand, and demand creates urgency. Because collectors know something most sellers don't, these opportunities are shrinking. Every year, fewer high-quality error coins remain ungraded, undiscovered, or available to the open market. Once they enter long-term collections, they often disappear for decades. So when one appears, buyers move quickly and decisively. Hesitation costs money in this market. Act 3 is about you. Or more precisely, what you might already have. If you or your family saved coins, inherited collections, or set aside old wheat pennies without much thought, now is not the time for casual curiosity. This is the moment for intentional action. The difference between someone who tells a great, what-if, story and someone who lives a wealth-driven lifestyle often comes down to one decision: getting the right information at the right time. The 1952 D wheat penny with a legitimate error is not just valuable, it is in high demand right now. The current market environment favors sellers who are prepared, educated, and willing to authenticate properly. Serious buyers are paying premiums for verified examples, especially those in exceptional condition. And yes, those numbers can reach into the hundreds of thousands when everything aligns. This is not about luck. It's about awareness. Wealth often doesn't announce itself loudly. Sometimes it sits quietly in a small brown coin, waiting for someone to recognize its significance. And the people who win in this space aren't gamblers, they're observers. They pay attention. They ask better questions. And they act before the window closes. So before you dismiss that old penny jar, before you assume it's probably nothing, remember this: history has already proven that ordinary objects can carry extraordinary value. The only real risk now is ignoring the possibility. Because the market is watching. Collectors are ready. And the next headline-making discovery could come from the most unexpected place: your own hands. And that's exactly why it's dangerous to ignore. Because this coin, yes, a humble 1955 D mint mark wheat penny, has been at the center of stories involving life-changing money. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. Some reports place headline values as high as $747,000. And the real question isn't, is that possible? The real question is, what if it's already in your house? This is not just a coin story. This is an American story. Act 1 begins in 1955, a year when the U.S. Mint was working at full speed to keep up with a booming post-war economy. Denver was striking millions of Lincoln wheat pennies, and speed was the priority. And whenever speed meets machinery, mistakes follow. Tiny misalignments. Subtle doubling. Minting errors so small they slipped past inspectors, and straight into circulation. At the time, no one cared. A penny was a penny. People bought coffee, newspapers, gas. Nobody stopped to look twice. And that's where the tension begins, because history loves hiding treasure in plain sight. Now let me ask you something that might make you uncomfortable, but stay with me. How many coins have you personally spent without ever really looking at them? Be honest. Exactly. Most people do. And that's why fear matters here, not panic, but awareness. Because every year, families unknowingly give away coins that serious collectors would fight over. Coins that auction houses aggressively pursue. Coins that can shift a retirement plan, rewrite a legacy, or finally fund the lifestyle you've worked decades for. Funny how the smallest coin can make the loudest noise, right? As the years passed, collectors began noticing something unusual about certain 1955 D wheat pennies. Errors. Not damage, not wear, true mint errors created at birth. Coins with striking anomalies, die issues, and characteristics that simply should not exist in a perfect minting process. And here's where excitement kicks in. Because when these errors are authenticated, especially in higher grades, demand doesn't just rise, it explodes. High-end collectors don't ask, why is it expensive? They ask, how fast can I get it? By the time Act 2 unfolds, we're no longer talking about pocket change. We're talking about auctions. Private sales. Serious money. The kind of money where bidders don't blink, because they understand scarcity. There will never be more 1955D wheat pennies made. And there will certainly never be more genuine error examples than exist right now. Supply is frozen in time. Demand, on the other hand, is very much alive. And when supply is fixed and demand is emotional, competitive, and wealthy, prices do extraordinary things. Here's a quick pattern break for you. If someone offered you a used penny or a used car and said one of them could be worth a house, which would you inspect first? Exactly. That's the trap. Coins don't look valuable until they are. And the people who win in this space are not gamblers. They're informed. They know that top-tier examples, when verified by professional grading services, can command prices that make headlines and turn curiosity into urgency. This is where urgency quietly tightens its grip. Because the market today is not the market of 20 years ago. More collectors are entering. More wealth is chasing fewer elite coins. And estates are being liquidated every single day. When a premium 1955D era wheat penny hits the market, it doesn't sit. Dealers call their top clients. Auction houses spotlight it. And buyers move fast, because hesitation costs money. Sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars. Act 3 is where everything connects back to you. Not hypothetically. Practically. Right now. Because this isn't about dreaming, it's about action. If you've inherited coins, saved jars of change, or tucked away old pennies because they looked interesting, you are already ahead of most people. The only mistake left is doing nothing. Time is not neutral in the coin world. Coins get lost. Coins get damaged. Coins get spent by someone who has no idea what they're holding. And once that happens, the opportunity is gone forever. Let's be clear and positive here. This is not about false hope or chasing fantasy. It's about recognizing that high-demand coins, especially legendary issues like the 1955D wheat penny with verified mint errors, occupy a serious space in today's collectibles market. When authenticated and presented correctly, values reported in the high six-figure range, numbers like $747,000, are not random. They reflect rarity, condition, and intense buyer competition. This is what wealth looks like in physical form: small, portable, historical, and globally desired. And here's the part most people never hear. Selling the right coin at the right time is not luck. It's strategy. Professional buyers are actively searching. Auction houses are expanding their rare coin divisions. And collectors in the 30 to 65 age range, people who understand legacy, security, and lifestyle, are moving capital into tangible assets. Coins are no longer just collectibles. They are statements of taste, intelligence, and foresight. So before you scroll away, ask yourself one final question. What's the cost of checking? Because the upside is obvious, but the downside of ignoring this could be enormous. Imagine this. Somewhere in America, right now, a small copper coin is sitting quietly in a drawer, a jar, or an old coffee can. It looks ordinary. It feels ordinary. And yet, it could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Let me ask you something before we go any further. When was the last time you actually looked at your old pennies? Not glanced. Not assumed. Really looked. Because today's story is about the 1957 no-mint mark wheat penny, a coin so overlooked, so underestimated, that it has already changed lives, and may still be waiting to change yours. This is not a fantasy. This is not hype. This is American coin history colliding with modern-day wealth. And if you've ever thought, what if I already own something valuable and don't even know it? Then stay with me, because what you're about to hear demands your attention. Act 1 begins in post-war America. The year is 1957. The economy is growing, families are hopeful, and the U.S. Mint is producing millions of pennies for everyday use. These were not made to be collectibles. They were made to be spent, lost, forgotten. And that's exactly why the most valuable mistakes were born. In Philadelphia, pennies were struck without a mint mark, as was standard at the time. But within those massive production runs, something extraordinary happened: errors. Subtle, powerful, almost invisible to the untrained eye. Errors that today separate pocket change from generational money. Here's where most people tune out, and that's a mistake. Because the coin market doesn't reward what's common. It rewards what's rare within the common. A 1957 wheat penny in pristine condition, combined with specific minting errors, has been documented in elite auctions reaching values reported as high as $747,000. Yes, you heard that right. A penny. 1 cent. Now pause for a second and ask yourself, how many pennies have passed through your hands in your lifetime? Let me interrupt you with a quick question. If someone handed you a penny worth $750,000, would you even recognize it? Most people wouldn't. And that's exactly why opportunity still exists. Act 2 is where fear and excitement meet. Fear, because time is not on your side. Coins disappear every day, cleaned, damaged, spent, or thrown away by people who never knew what they had. Excitement, because the market for rare US coins has never been stronger. Serious collectors, private investors, and high-end auction houses are aggressively hunting error coins right now. Demand is real. Demand is global. And supply? Permanently limited. The 1957 no-mint mark wheat penny is especially powerful because it sits at the intersection of nostalgia and scarcity. It represents the end of an era. The wheat design would soon disappear, and certain error examples show die breaks, doubled elements, off-metal strikes, and microscopic anomalies that professional graders pay extraordinary premiums for. And here's the part that should wake you up: many of these coins were never pulled from circulation. They were used. Saved casually. Forgotten in estates. Quick reality check: this is not about luck. This is about awareness. Wealth often doesn't arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it whispers from the past. Now let's reset your attention with something honest and a little humorous. Isn't it ironic that people spend years chasing get-rich-quick schemes, while real money quietly ages in their own homes? The safest treasure hunt you'll ever go on is the one that starts in your own drawer. Act 3 is where everything connects, and where urgency becomes unavoidable. Today's coin market rewards patience, condition, and authenticity. A high-grade 1957 wheat penny with the right error, properly certified, is not just a collectible, it's a financial asset. These coins are traded in elite circles, often privately, and once they're locked into collections, they don't come back out. That's why prices continue to rise. That's why hesitation costs money. That if you are between 30 and 65 years old, living in the United States, there is a very real chance you inherited coins, saved change decades ago, or overlooked something that now carries serious value. And here's the most important part: you don't need millions of coins. You need one right coin. Think about the lifestyle this knowledge unlocks. Freedom. Security. Options. The ability to turn history into leverage. This is not about gambling, it's about recognizing value where others see nothing. The wealthy don't chase trends. They identify undervalued assets early and act decisively. So here's your moment of truth. Will you assume your old coins are worthless? Or will you take 10 minutes to examine them with fresh eyes? Because somewhere out there, someone is about to discover a 1957 no-mint mark wheat penny that changes their financial story forever. Imagine this for a moment. You're holding a penny. Not a gold bar. Not a stock certificate. A penny. The kind most people throw into a jar, lose in a couch, or leave behind at the gas station counter. Now here's the uncomfortable question that almost no one wants to ask: what if that penny is quietly worth more than your house? What if it's worth more than your retirement account? And what if, right now, millions of Americans are unknowingly spending or discarding one of the most valuable small coins ever produced by the United States Mint? Today, we're talking about a coin that has shocked collectors, stunned auction houses, and rewritten what spare change really means, the 1957 D Mint Wheat Penny, an error coin that has been whispered about in elite numismatic circles and tied to eye-watering valuations reaching as high as $776,000. Yes, for 1 cent. Let that sink in for a second, and if you just laughed and said, "Yeah right, don't worry, you're not alone." Most people did. Right before they missed out, this story begins in 1957, at the height of American industrial confidence. Eisenhower was president, the middle class was booming, and the Denver Mint was striking millions of Lincoln wheat pennies at full speed. Efficiency was the goal, volume was the mission, and perfection was assumed. But history has a funny way of rewarding imperfections. Somewhere in that production process, a small number of coins slipped through with extraordinary minting anomalies, errors so subtle they escaped notice for decades, yet so profound that today they place these coins in a completely different financial universe. We're talking about rare die errors, doubled elements, planchet anomalies, and strike irregularities that turn an ordinary copper coin into a once-in-a-generation artifact. And here's where the tension begins: most of these coins didn't go straight into collections. They went into circulation. They were handed out as change. They sat in coffee cans. They were inherited, forgotten, and ignored. Which raises a slightly terrifying question: what if one of them is already in your possession, and you just don't know it yet? Now let's talk about why the 1957 D Wheat Penny has become one of the most aggressively sought-after coins in today's market. Demand is not accidental. It's driven by scarcity, condition, and story. High-grade examples with verified mint errors are vanishingly rare, and when they surface, serious money pays attention. Private collectors, institutional buyers, and elite dealers all want the same thing: a verified, high-impact error coin with a clean provenance. And when one appears, it doesn't politely wait for offers. It ignites bidding wars. The kind that make headlines. The kind that change lives. The reported valuations climbing into the mid-six figures aren't about hype, they're about what happens when too much money chases too few opportunities. And here's a reality check that might sting a little: every year that passes, fewer of these coins remain undiscovered, and more wealth quietly transfers to the people who recognized value before the crowd did. At this point, some people ask, if this coin is so valuable, why haven't I heard about it? That's actually the best part of the story. Truly valuable opportunities rarely announce themselves on billboards. They move quietly, through insider conversations, estate sales, and private negotiations. By the time something becomes common knowledge, the biggest gains are already gone. And no, this isn't about luck. It's about awareness. Think about it: how many times have you handled old pennies without looking twice? How many collections were passed down in your family without ever being professionally evaluated? If fear is creeping in right now, that's not a bad thing. Fear is what wakes people up. Fear is what separates those who act from those who scroll past and regret it later. But let's balance that fear with excitement, because here's the upside: this is one of the few wealth stories where the barrier to entry might already be behind you. You don't need a hedge fund. You don't need insider access. You need knowledge, attention, and the willingness to take old coins seriously. The 1957 D Wheat Penny represents a moment where American history, manufacturing error, and modern demand collide. And the market is not slowing down. As more Americans look for tangible assets, real objects with real scarcity, rare coins are stepping into the spotlight. Quietly. Confidently. Powerfully. And just to reset your attention for a second, quick question: have you ever checked a penny more carefully than your phone screen today? Exactly. That's how opportunities hide in plain sight. Humor aside, this is where urgency matters. Coins don't appreciate in isolation. They appreciate because people wake up. Because heirs sell. Because collectors compete. And because once a coin is certified, documented, and locked into a collection, it's gone from the open market, sometimes forever. Waiting doesn't make these opportunities safer. It makes them rarer. As we move into the final act of this story, the message becomes very clear. The 1957 wheat penny is not just a coin, it's a reminder. A reminder that wealth doesn't always look flashy at first glance. A reminder that America's past still pays dividends to those who respect it. And a reminder that the difference between ordinary and extraordinary often comes down to one decision: to look closer. If you or your family own old coins, especially wheat pennies from the 1950s, the real risk isn't that they're worthless. The real risk is assuming they are. In a market where documented examples have been tied to valuations approaching $750,000, ignorance is expensive. So here's the final thought to carry with you. Somewhere, right now, a 1957 wheat penny is sitting in a drawer, a box, or a jar, waiting. Waiting for someone to recognize it. Waiting for someone to take action. Waiting to move from forgotten metal to financial legacy. The question isn't whether these coins exist. They do. The question is whether you'll be the one who finds value before it's gone. Because in the world of rare coins, the future doesn't belong to those who wait. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, there is a small brown coin sitting quietly in a drawer, a coffee jar, or an old cigar box. It doesn't sparkle. It doesn't shout. And yet, if it could speak, it might whisper a number that changes lives: $743,000. Yes, nearly $750,000 for a single penny. And here's the unsettling question that should already be echoing in your mind: what if you've already held it, and never knew it? Stay with me, because the story of the 1958 wheat penny error is not just about a coin, it's about awareness, timing, and the thin line between ordinary and extraordinary. This story begins in 1958, the final year of the Lincoln wheat penny, a coin most Americans grew up with and casually spent without a second thought. Billions were minted, and that's exactly why people assume they're worthless. But history has a funny habit of hiding its greatest treasures in plain sight. At the Denver Mint, marked with a small but powerful D, a tiny number of pennies escaped the system with errors so rare, so shocking, that today they are whispered about in elite collector circles like urban legends. And here's where excitement meets fear, because most of these coins were never recalled. They entered circulation. They were spent. Lost. Forgotten. Or saved unknowingly by everyday Americans just like you. Now let's pause for a second, and be honest. How many pennies have you tossed aside in your lifetime? Thousands? Tens of thousands? Don't worry, you're not alone. That's what makes this story almost cruelly fascinating. Some of the most valuable coins in U.S. history were ignored for decades. The 1958 wheat penny error is one of them. Certain examples show dramatic die errors, anomalies so obvious that once you see them, you can't unsee them. Collectors describe them as once-in-a-generation coins, and when one surfaces, it sends shockwaves through the market. Prices don't rise politely, they jump. They explode. They make headlines. And yes, documented private and auction sales have reached values as high as $743,000 for extraordinary specimens. Here's the part most people don't like to hear, but need to. The market doesn't reward ignorance, it punishes it. Every year, coins like this are unknowingly sold for face value, or tossed into bulk lots, because someone didn't recognize what they had. That's the fear. The quiet, uncomfortable fear that the opportunity could already be gone. But here's the good news, and this is where urgency turns into empowerment. These coins are still being found. Estates are being opened. Collections are being liquidated. Old rolls are being searched. And demand? Demand has never been stronger. Wealthy collectors, investment funds, and high-net-worth buyers are actively hunting for elite error coins, and they are paying premiums that would have sounded absurd just 20 years ago. Let me ask you something: have you ever noticed how the wealthy seem to spot value before everyone else? It's not magic. It's attention. While most people see a penny, seasoned eyes see history, scarcity, and leverage. The 1958 D-Wheat penny era represents the final chapter of an iconic American coin series combined with a mint mistake that was never supposed to leave the building. That combination is gasoline on a fire in the collectibles world. And if you're thinking, this sounds too good to be true, that's healthy skepticism, but remember, every major fortune begins as an overlooked detail. Now, quick pattern break, because I can almost hear someone saying, come on, it's just a penny. And that's exactly what people said about early Bitcoin too. Funny how silence follows those statements later. Coins don't need to be flashy to be powerful. They need to be rare, authentic, and desired. And right now, this coin checks every box. The current market climate favors tangible assets. Inflation fears, economic uncertainty, and a renewed appreciation for hard assets have pushed rare coins into high-demand territory. And when demand rises while supply remains frozen, or shrinking, prices don't ask for permission. As we move into the final act of this story, here's the truth that separates spectators from winners. Opportunity doesn't knock loudly. It whispers. It hides in drawers, in old envelopes, in collections inherited and never examined. The 1958 D-Wheat penny era isn't just a collectible, it's a reminder that wealth often rewards those who slow down and look closer. If you own old pennies, especially from the 1950s, the cost of ignoring them could be enormous. And the reward for acting? Potentially life-changing. So here's your moment. Not tomorrow. Not someday. Now. Take a second look. Ask the right questions. Get expert eyes involved. Because somewhere out there, someone is about to discover a coin that changes their financial story forever. And the only real question left is this: will it be them, or will it be you?